Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And do not adjust your screens, yes, this is a Tier 5 battle. And that is a Clemson, a Tier 4 destroyer. But we are not seal clubbing today. I mean, yes, arguably the Clemson is the smallest of smally boats. I mean, it is a Tier 4 destroyer, this is a Tier 5 maximum game. And because it is the North American server and it's a Tier 5 battle, yes, there are several bots present. But this is still not seal clubbing, and the reason for that is because Once Upon a Citadel here only has 144 battles played. Today was his 17th birthday, and to celebrate, he and his brother, that's his brother over there in the Monte Cucci, however the hell you pronounce that, Iolo, decided they were going to play with their friend, who is the guy in the Karlsruhe, and bless him, Once Upon a Citadel said in the email that accompanied this replay. Remember, he only has 144 battles played himself, and he said that his friend in the Karlsruhe is new to the game. And this is, in fact, his first ever battle in the Karlsruhe. So we've got a triple division here. We've got Once Upon a Citadel himself in the Clemson. We've got his brother, You Are Toast, in the Monty, and we've got his friend Black Cat in the Karlsruhe. Well, I'll say there's no seal clubbing going on in this battle. This one is definitely being told from the perspective of the seals and not the clubbers. There might be some seal clubbers in this battle, but I don't think so. If there are, they're not very good at it. The class Horn over there, by the way, that is a player. If you're curious and you want to, if you can't tell the difference when you're watching a battle and you don't know who's a bot and who isn't, well, who's a legal bot and who isn't, the bots always have a colon in front of their name. They're always named after historical figures. Like Gormley over there, the US Navy Vice Admiral, who had the misfortune to be the guy in charge and therefore the one taking the blame for the disastrous Allied performance at the First Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. And he's not going to be doing an awful lot better today, and since he's a bot, he can't blame it on his bad teeth. That's a naval historian joke, by the way. Not a particularly funny one. Anyway, yeah, oh, another kill. And again, for Citadel's team, this time the Omaha players managed to pick one up. I'm pretty sure the Celebes over there, played by Admiral Gormley, is about to meet a sticky end. Some torpedoes there, I think they're from the class Horn. Citadel's managed to set a fire, yep, he's got him. However, the Königsberg and the Murmansk on the enemy team have both just claimed a kill each themselves. And yes, we're going to be seeing more of those two later as well. Dante Alighieri over there, I mean, it's a bot, the guns are pointing in a different direction, and Citadel is still inside a smokescreen, so this is perfectly safe. And then, in a sudden and extremely embarrassing plot twist, the Königsberg player on the team, on Citadel's team this time, manages to get a double strike, scoring torpedo kills on the Alighieri, which is a bot, and the Yubari, which is not, and yet no double strike is awarded. That's because the friendly Königsberg is a bot himself. Oh dear, how embarrassing for the Yubari player. Well, thanks to the bot Königsberg, Citadel's team are 2 kills ahead, and the enemy team are down another player. Speaking of players, that class Horn is proving to be something of a problem, as the enemy Corbeil comes around the corner, but no, it's okay. No need to panic about the Corbeil. It's a bot, it's a battleship, it's got slow turning turrets, and the guns are pointing the other way. So, rule number 1, prioritise the things that you can actually kill that are trying to kill you. So he takes out the class Horn. Now this does leave him spotted right in front of the Corbeil, but once again, it's a bot, it's a battleship, the guns are pointing the other way. That doesn't mean the secondaries aren't going to shoot at him, but it looks like it's about to eat a bunch of torpedoes. Actually, no, it's not. Not quite sure who launched those torpedoes, but it looks like they've all missed. Okay, so while Citadel isn't in any immediate perilous danger, that doesn't mean that, yeah, there we go, the secondaries from the Corbeil, they just knocked his engine out. So he was forced to use his damage control in order to get off of the rocks of the island and try to get some torpedoes away, because while the Corbeil isn't directly attacking him, it is spotting him. And it's dodged those torpedoes as well. So he opens up with the 5-inch guns, manages to get a fire set. And surprisingly, the callback... Oh, that's not good. Nobody saw that, right? Like I said, 144 battles played. Cut him some slack. Surprisingly, the Core Bay hasn't actually used its damage control to put that fire out. Because the bots generally do tend to just burn their damage control the second they suffer a fire or a flood. But the guns are pointing in this direction now, so pops the smoke screen just in case. And, well, there we go. Sadly, he is now the last surviving member of his division. While all of this was going on, off camera, his friend and his brother have just each caught themselves a nasty dose of death. Which is unfortunate. Although, they are still one kill ahead. And they're at the moment the only team with a cap circle. In case you're wondering, yes, the points at the top of the screen are once again the wrong way around. Good job, Wargaming. The thing is, the 4 surviving players on the enemy team are exactly that. They're players. The captains of the 5 surviving ships on Citadel's team are not. 3 of them are bots. And with the death of the friendly Katovsky, Once Upon a Citadel suddenly finds himself the only remaining player on his team. Alone, although with a diminishing number of bots on his side, against 4 actual players. And remember, Once Upon a Citadel only has 144 battles played. And yes, he's spotted. Because of course he is. I mean, this is not the biggest map in the world. It's a low-tier map. They're kind of small. On the plus side, he does have that superstar Königsberg bot player with him, who has not only got 2 kills, but he's also helping him flip this cap circle, and is at least serving to draw some of the heat away from him. Oh, is that bot going to get a 3rd kill? No, he's not. Okay, it was close. Citadel is, though. Actually, that's his 4th. And this could be his 5th. This could be the Kraken against the Celebes or Celebes. I have no idea how you pronounce it. Dutch East Indies. Something named after some island where some battle or something. I don't know, whatever. And it doesn't matter, he's dead. Right. And there's the Kraken unleashed. So it's 2 on 2. But again, here's the problem. The Miyogi over there is a bot. And the Königsberg and the Murmansk on the enemy team are very definitely not, because they have 8 kills between the 2 of them. In particular, the Königsberg, who has 6, which is, yeah. It's not looking particularly good for young Once Upon a Citadel here. I mean, technically the kills are even, but it's 2 players against 1. And we really should not be expecting any miracles whatsoever from the bot Miyogi. Both teams have 1 cap circle, and they're both duking it out for the 3rd cap circle here in the middle of the map at Bravo. Now, if you're looking at the various different scores or the number of kills that everybody has scored, you might naturally be thinking to yourself that perhaps there is some actual seal clubbing going on here, because the enemy Königsberg does have 6 kills. But, well, I mean, Once Upon a Citadel himself only has, remember, 144 battles played, and he's on a Kraken Unleashed. You may be surprised to learn that the enemy Königsberg player has less than 500 battles played himself. So there's no actual seal clubbing going on in this battle. Oh, those are going to be Murmansk torpedoes. Now, these are just the seals. The Murmansk, of course, is the sort of Lend-Lease version of the Omaha, but it's Russian, so it gets good torpedoes instead of the terrible ones that the Omaha gets, because the Omaha is in the premium. You know what Once Upon a Citadel has done here? I mean, he's smoked up, obviously, because he's sitting in front of a light cruiser. I mean, this would be suicide. And yet, he can still see the target. That's because look at where he's smoked. And look at where the Miyogi is. The Miyogi is doing the spotting for him. That's pretty much all the Miyogi's doing, of course, because he's certainly not shooting at the Murmansk or the Königsberg, who is tucked away behind an island and out of line of sight. But that's fine. Spotting the Murmansk is all that we're expecting the Miyogi to do. That Murmansk might get away, actually. Citadel has switched to armour piercing to punish its broadside, but then it turned. Ooh, torpedoes! Okay, good news, bad news. Torpedoes, bad news, obviously. And he's dodged them. They scraped paint off the stern, but in its haste to get behind the island over there and out of line of sight, the Murmansk ran itself aground, giving Citadel the opportunity to finish it off with his little pop guns. And it's still hard work. The Murmansk realises it's not getting out of here without a fight. And while it can't see him, He is blind firing, and it's remarkably accurate blind fire. But thanks to that error in navigation, the odds were never going to be in the Murmansk's favour. So Once Upon a Citadel manages to sink him, and that's his 6th kill. He's now tied with the only remaining player, and now in fact the only remaining ship on the enemy team, the Königsberg. Oh yeah, the Königsberg. Where's the Königsberg? He's not in the cap circle. I mean, we'd know if he was in the cap circle because it would be contested, but it isn't. And he's not shooting at the Miyogi. Are we really, really lucky and he's gone AFK? Citadel decides it's probably worth poking out of the smoke screen to see if he can spot him and figure out what he's up to. He's only got a couple of seconds to wait before he takes this cap. And he is 200 points ahead. And there's the Königsberg. Not AFK. And now shooting at the Miyogi. How bizarre. Well, you'd think so, but again, you have to realise there is no seal clubbing going on here in this battle. Both of these guys only have a handful of battles to play. He is inside torpedo range, though. Of course, the thing is, because the Clemson cannot stealth torpedo, if he's inside torpedo range, he's also inside spotting range. So he guns the engines to get into cover behind the island here. Gets a couple of safe shots against the Königsberg, since it was occupied with beating the Miyogi to death. But none of those torpedoes are going to hit. So this is a problem. That enemy Königsberg may not be a seal clubber, but he's also clearly not a noob. I mean, he's a newbie, but he's not a noob. There's a big difference. I mean, the guy has 7 kills. I mean, I'm not claiming that either of the 2 remaining players in this battle are tactical military geniuses either. They've both made errors. Of course they have. Neither of them have particularly large numbers of battles under their belts in this game. The Königsberg, for example, kind of left the Murmansk out to dry while hiding behind that island over there. Possibly he was scared of getting shot at by the Miyogi. Don't know. I mean, it's a reasonable fear. Light cruiser, getting shot at by a battleship, even if it is just a Miyogi, it's certainly a reasonable fear. Don't know why, but whatever the reason was, this is where we've ended up. We've got one tier 4, not particularly good destroyer. I mean, the Clemson isn't terrible, certainly not a bad destroyer, but, well, let me just put it this way. Nobody ever said, ooh, let's fire up World of Warships. I can't wait to get me some of that hot, sweaty Clemson action, right? Yeah, against the Königsberg, which is a tier higher, and is actually not a bad ship, although it does suffer from the whole tier 5 light cruiser, I tend to explode violently if anybody so much as looks at me with armour-piercing loaded problem, but that's not going to be a problem for the Königsberg in this battle, because, well, it's the Clemson. It only has 5-inch guns. There he is. Not taking the cap. You can actually see the thought processes here of the enemy Königsberg captain as Citadel decides, well, I'm about to get into cover behind the island, I can risk a couple of shots. Which honestly is a good thing to do. I mean, it has told the Königsberg exactly where he is and which way he's going, but, well, I think what we were seeing the Königsberg do there, he was obviously hesitant about getting into the cap circle because he thought, well, it's a destroyer, I'm going to get torpedoed. Again, which, you know, shows off his inexperience, because he doesn't know. I mean, he hasn't memorised the torpedo ranges and capabilities of every destroyer in the game. He doesn't know that a Clemson cannot stealth torpedo. If the Clemson is close enough to launch torpedoes at you, then you are going to see the Clemson coming. And, yeah, Citadel, well, he made one error there. He got so close that he did get himself spotted, but he recovered from it by not shooting and making the situation worse, because he was just at the outer limit of detection range. And the Königsberg is doing the right thing. He's taken that central cap, possibly aided by, I mean, we might be able to call it a misplay, as Citadel sailed in the gap between those 2 islands. He took some safe pot shots at the Königsberg as he was deliberating whether or not to head into the cap from the other side, and that did, of course, tell the Königsberg exactly where Citadel was and which way he was going. Which meant that the Königsberg knew it was relatively safe to get into the cap, because he does need to take that cap. He's behind on points. And now, of course, it's impossible to stealth cap in this game, isn't it? If you're in a cap circle, the enemy team are paying the slightest bit of attention, they're always going to know. So the Königsberg, he's seen the torpedo. Of course, the Königsberg's a German cruiser, doesn't it? It gets hydroacoustic search. It does only get 3 charges, though. And I don't know whether or not he just saw the torpedoes because he was out of hydro, or he had the hydro running. But either way, they ain't going to hit him. And I say the Clemson cannot stealth torpedo, and that's true, but it also isn't. I mean, it's true because the torpedoes only have a 5 kilometre range, and the ship itself has a 5.5 kilometre detection radius. But you can stealth torpedo from a Clemson if you're inside a smoke screen and the target's close enough. But, well, obviously, Once Upon a Citadel doesn't have any charges of smoke left. But you can also stealth torpedo from a Clemson if you're kiting away from a target that's chasing you, which is what I think Citadel was trying to do here. But again, nice play from the Königsberg. Well, a nice play and also a not nice play. First, good job for using the island concealment to be able to get close enough to spot and shoot at Once Upon a Citadel. Bad job for having armor piercing loaded. Because if the Königsberg had loaded high explosive, and why wouldn't you? You know that the last thing that you're facing is a destroyer, and armor piercing is just going to over-penetrate and do minimal damage. But if he had the high explosive loaded, I mean, look at how much health Once Upon a Citadel has left. If the Königsberg had loaded the high explosive instead of the armor piercing, this battle would already be over. But that's the thing. I mean, they're both inexperienced players. But despite that, you can still see the logical thought processes going through their heads. Like, for example, right now, Citadel's thinking, survived that one by the skin of my teeth, but how am I getting out of this one? Because he's now run out of map to run away to. There's the map border. So right now he's trying to second guess exactly what the Königsberg is doing, because one thing that we know the Königsberg is not doing is sailing into that cap circle, which possibly could mean that the Königsberg has decided, I don't have time to win by capping, which honestly, I mean, he might not. It's difficult to say. There's 3 minutes of this battle left. Citadel does have a 250 point lead, and with less than 3 minutes of the battle remaining, the Königsberg would already have to have taken that cap at Charlie in order to stand a slight chance of being able to win on points. And of course he hasn't, which might mean that he is instead steaming straight north in an effort to catch and kill Citadel, which under the circumstances would have been the right thing to do. And there he is. And it looks like, based on the fact that he's now turning into that cap circle and sailing straight into it from the west rather than the southwest, it looks like he was heading straight north in an effort to catch and kill Citadel here before he could slip away to the west. And if he'd stuck to his guns and done just that, and switched to the high explosive, he might have won this. But it looks like, well, a couple of factors conspired to doom the Königsberg to defeat. Not least of which, of course, is that Once Upon a Citadel is not trying to win any harder than he needs to. He's 300 points ahead, and despite his inexperience, and also probably because he's watched a video or two of mine, he knows that you don't need to win harder. Just winning will do. Take the points lead. You don't need to kill the Königsberg. You don't need the 7th kill. And that's exactly what he's doing. Unfortunately, I think the Königsberg, while it did look like he was trying to steam straight north in an effort to intercept Once Upon a Citadel here, just the presence of that cap circle was too much of a temptation. And also the fact, I mean, by the time he'd gotten as far north as the sea line and still hadn't seen him, he probably thought, yeah, he's long gone. I'm never going to catch him. So may as well farm some loser points and get into the cap circle, because, hey, points make prizes. And Once Upon a Citadel, in fact, he's there in chat because he knows he's won now. He says, you played well. Unfortunately, I am not winning any harder. Wise words, if ever I heard them. They grow up so fast. To which the Königsberg responds by thanking him. They're both, despite their inexperience, you can see that they both have a bright World of Warships future ahead of them. They both keep playing like this. I mean, they may not be great players, but they're certainly never going to be bad players. Neither of these two guys are ever going to be anybody that you'd be embarrassed to have on your team. Once Upon a Citadel finishes by letting the poor old Königsberg, who has now managed to take the cap circle and is at least going to get something for his efforts in this battle, letting him know exactly where he is, to which the Königsberg replies by, yeah, I'm never going to catch. There's no way. Never going to happen. And it is never going to happen, because that is a victory for Once Upon a Citadel in the USS Clemson, Tier 4 destroyer, in this Tier 5 World of Warships battle. And that, I mean, it's easy to say best game he's ever played, because it is the best game he's ever played, but he's only played 144 battles. But still, 6 kills, 1500 base XP. Yeah, some of those kills were bots. But even with 1,000 battles played, that's still a game to be proud of. Speaking of which, Razormaid in the Königsberg, 1600 base experience on a defeat. Oh, that's got to sting. That's more experience than Citadel got for winning. Man, that's got to sting. But again, you know, nothing to be ashamed of. He too can be proud of his performance. You know who else can be proud of their performance? Look at the second highest scoring player on Citadel's team. The only other player on the team to get more than 1,000 base experience. And then look closer, because it's not a player. It's the bot Königsberg, who managed to outplay everybody else on Citadel's team. World of Warships. You don't have to have a sense of humour to play here, but it does help. And I hope you were all amused and entertained by today's battle. Thank you to both Once Upon a Citadel and Clemson, and of course Razormaid there in the Königsberg, for what I at least thought was a highly entertaining battle. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.